You are LockedOn Braves POSTCAST, part of LockedOn Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the LockedOn Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley alongside Jake Mastroianni after what was, I would say, a profitable weekend for the Braves, and that they picked up a series win. But do we have more questions to ask about the Braves offense being able to find the consistency it's been looking for and follow up on some of the trends that we've seen as the month of June closes down? Those are things we'll talk about on this edition of the show. And of course, we got to get you set for the upcoming series against the San Francisco Giants, which starts on Tuesday with a little bit of intrigue after that as the Philadelphia Phillies will be rolling into town. Maybe we'll even touch on that. Before we get started, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube, subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Jake, I don't know if the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Atlanta Braves necessarily had the most current rivalry of all, but it was good for Atlanta in the sense that they won a series, did the Braves. It was also good to, even things up after dropping 2 out of 3 up in Pittsburgh last month. But there are, I think, some questions that are fair to ask coming out of this series about the Braves offense, the Braves lineup, and their ability to find the consistency they've seemingly been looking for a couple of months.
Certainly we'll take the series wins. We've seen them drop these types of series here over the last, couple of months now, but you do come out of it, I think, with still some, very big questions about this Braves offense. But, again, you do get a series win. You're back home. Obviously that's feels great, but it's still, you don't have that great feeling as you might have coming out of the series just because of the lack of offense.
Yeah, and I think you kind of wanted to get at least a little bit greedy, maybe try to sweep this series and get yourself set up for, an under 500 opponent that the Pirates were. But, I mean, you could tell that there's some competition factor there. Maybe they're a little bit more competitive than they've been in recent years, and certainly some excitement that was had on Saturday, which we can talk about a little bit in the matchup between Max Fried and Paul Skenes. But on Sunday, rookie Spencer Schwellenbach, he ran into a couple of 2-run homers in the 5th inning, and as it turned out, that was all the offense that the Pirates would need on this day. Schwellenbach, as much as I think you and I both like the potential here, some of the abilities that this kid has flashed thus far, I think it's important to note that this is a guy that came into the season with fewer than 100 innings in his professional career. There's a certain amount of on-the-job training that's happening for Spencer Schwellenbach, and it's happening at the major league level.
There is, and there is a ton of like you said, we both are very encouraged by what we've seen from him, but it is a guy, again, like you said, doesn't have a lot of professional innings under his belt, and not even that. And we talk about all the time in college, he was a relief pitcher, so doesn't even have a lot of experience as a starter. All that considered, I think you have to be impressed with what you've seen from him. Now, he's ran into some issues that really have been in one inning in some of his starts where things have kind of just gotten away from him, but even at that, Grant, if he's your 5th starter and he's giving you 5 innings of 4 earned or less, I mean, for the most part, I think you can live with that if you're getting something from your offense. Your offense just isn't giving you much right now. So, but again, for a 5th starter, I think most days you'll be able to come away okay with that start. But certainly a lot to like with Spencer Schwellenbach. Again, learning on the job, as you said. I've been very impressed with what we've seen from him.
Yeah, and Spencer Schwellenbach didn't let the game get completely out of hand. I recognize that the 4 runs were what the Pirates needed to win this game, but as you pointed out, and as we've talked about so many times on this show and probably so many other places on your shows and mine, this is an offense that you wouldn't think that they would be out of it with a couple of 2-run homers against them. You'd think maybe they're going to be able to tap into a little bit of their own power, and we've seen some of that in the month of June, but we didn't see enough of it in the Pirates series outside of 1 inning that happened on Friday night. I mean, Atlanta's bats piled up 6 runs in the first 3 innings of the series in total. It was an Austin Riley solo homer in the 2nd inning of game 1, the 5-run inning that followed up, and then they scored 4 runs over the final 24 innings of the series, Jake. And that, I think, is where those questions start to creep in about this group, some of the consistency that they're searching for, some guys who, quite frankly, need to get going. And, we're at that point now where you're at the halfway point of the season. We're not talking about the small sample sizes anymore. It's not about being a prisoner of the moment or recency bias or any of those things. I mean, there are some statistical trends still following this Braves club around that are not ideal when you consider either A, where they were a year ago and what their expectation was coming into this year, or B, which is probably more to the point, what they need in order to be a consistently competitive club night in and night out here in 2024.
That's an issue at this point. I mean, I know me and you both, or at least I know I did. I don't want to speak for you. When this all was happening the first week or two, I said, give it some time. They'll come around. We'll get into the summer months and things will come around. And we've seen some signs of that here or there, but it to your point, it's not that consistency that we're used to seeing. And as you said, you had the 5-run inning on Friday, and that was great. But then you don't follow that up with anything really the next 2 games. I mean, on Saturday, and I know it was a great pitcher's duel. Paul Skenes is really good. You had a chance to knock him out of that game early. I mean, you had plenty of chances in that game. An unfortunate double play for Marcell Ozuna on a hard hit ball, but you had chances in that game early to get to Paul Skenes before he really kind of settled in. And they can't seem to find that clutch hit consistently, and not even necessarily a hit going on Sunday. I mean, you had first and third, 1 out late in the game, and couldn't even just punch a run across in that 7th inning to creep a little bit closer. So they just don't have that situational hitting right now to be able to just tack on some runs here or there. They get back in some of these games that they fall behind. It's like they're waiting on that 2-3 run homer, and those just aren't coming as frequently. So it makes it kind of frustrating. It makes it hard for this offense to really score with any type of consistency. And it's just, again, not an issue, but any of us thought would be talking about at this point of the season.
No, certainly not for this long, and not for an extended period of time, really, at all. When you consider that the staff or the overall lineup and the talent that you're bringing back is capable of so much more, not just what they showed a year ago, but I mean, a lot of these guys with track records, it's not just a bunch of one-year wonders who somehow figured out, some way to suddenly be competitive or suddenly be good. There are some guys that have been going through it for the better part of the season and that haven't been able to turn things around. Now, we have seen a couple of highlights in recent weeks. I mean, the play of Jarred Kelenic really over the last month, and particularly the last 2 weeks, and jumping into the leadoff spot, that's been, I think, definitely a good sign for the Braves, a great sign for Jarred Kelenic. And Austin Riley has been absolutely tattooing the ball here, here of late. And that's something that you needed to see, because he had gone nearly 2 months without getting himself on track. And now it seems like his season is course corrected. But whether or not it can happen for the Ozzie Albies, the Matt Olsons, at least finding a nice long run of consistency. Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud have had their ups and downs. Sean obviously missed a lot of time. You're without Michael Harris. The injury to Acuna goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I mean, there are reasons, for where the Braves are and why they're there. But you just, I think, continue to look for, the kinds of encouraging signs that we were seeing here in June, that can find a way to continue. Because if they fall back into another long stretch of not really being able to perform against some teams that they should, quite frankly, be able to win those series, and they're asking an awful lot of the pitching, which they have been all season long. I tell you that whole long story, Jake, to ask you this question, you have to kind of wonder where the Braves are going to be, not only at the end of this homestand, but as they roll into the All-Star break and try to assess what they need in the second half. I mean, some of the needs seem pretty obvious, don't they? But others, I don't know. It's a little bit harder to tell exactly what they must do in order to turn this thing around to find those answers.
And that's what Alex Anthopoulos and the staff, have to figure out here, and what type of player, because I think they have to go get some players. Like you say, I think that's pretty obvious, but what type of player are you going after to get? Because this is a lineup that is built on slug. It is built to destroy the baseball, and they're still doing that. You can go look at all the metrics out there. They're still doing that. They're just not getting rewarded as often. So when you're looking at what needs to be upgraded, what type of player are you going to go after? Because there are some holes at the bottom of this lineup. There's no doubt. You're out with Ronald Acuna Jr. Michael Harris is out for a while. You spent time this year without Ozzie Albies, without Sean Murphy, without Austin Riley. And as you said, that all kind of goes into some of the offensive struggles, but it doesn't really, it doesn't explain it all. No. And just how poorly they've been. But they've got to figure some things out to have some more consistency, top to bottom in this lineup. So as you mentioned, you kind of had this stretch here, and maybe the next couple of weeks as we get into the month of July. Yes, we're already into July starting tomorrow. You got to figure out who can get it done that you have internally. What do you have internally? And then where can you go externally to make some upgrades? Because it feels pretty obvious that Alex is going to go out and make at least a couple of moves to try to help get this offense going.
And not to turn it into a discussion about, every other race and every other team in baseball, but you look at the NL wildcard standings. Within 5 games, you have, I believe it's 8 teams fighting for a playoff spot after the Braves and Padres. There's a lot that those teams have to decide, and that's going to affect what kind of buying there is to be done. Now, putting all of that aside and putting aside the disappointment of Sunday, I will say that Saturday's game was a lot of fun, in terms of the matchup that you were going to see. Max Fried and Paul Skenes, they were able to pretty much match themselves up with 6 innings of one-run ball apiece. The Braves prevailed in 10 innings. Love seeing Adam Duvall be involved in that win, certainly as well, and we can touch on that a little bit more lately. So it's not to be all doom and gloom and stuck on Sunday, but there just are those questions about the Braves offense, even after a series win, because you go back to right before this series got started, what you needed to erase very quickly was that 1-0 loss to the Chicago White Sox, who are not a team that's typically winning a lot of 1-0 games, if you catch my drift. So the Braves were able to do that on Friday, sew away the series with that win on Saturday, but Sunday, a little bit of a step backwards for the Braves. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We will, of course, get you set up for the San Francisco Giants series, which will get started on Tuesday as well as the Braves postcast rolls on. Summer travel is heating up, especially travel for baseball games, so it's time to explore those U.S. cities you have always secretly wanted to know more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find yourself the perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. From hotels that overlook the stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or find the Booking.com app. I love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we all want them to. But at FanDuel, lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime, and I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Well, Jake, it's not just about getting in the line score and box score of one game. Let's talk about the last couple of days. I think we covered Sunday quite succinctly. We were looking forward to the Max Fried and Paul Skenes matchup. I think on a lot of levels it delivered. It may not be the classic, Jack Morris and John Smoltz from Game 7 of a World Series or that kind of thing. But I think we got a very good performance from Max Fried, quite obviously, who really only ran into trouble in one inning, but did what he continues to do, which is minimize that damage. And on the flip side of that, we got to see Paul Skenes, who, as you mentioned, the Braves had on the ropes a couple of times, find his way out of those troubles and show that big stuff and that strikeout ability. A pretty fun little matchup, and all's well that ends well for the Braves because they did prevail in extra innings. What did you think of Saturday's contest?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, sometimes you get these pitchers matchups and it ends up just being a shootout. It doesn't really pan out the way that we think it's going to go. And in this one, I mean, at the end of the day, they both went 6 innings, only gave up 1 run. But I think if you ask both pitchers, they'd probably say they didn't have their best stuff in this one. Max Fried allowed 6 hits, 3 walks. We're not used to seeing, that level of inconsistency with control or command for Max Fried. Paul Skenes himself, like I said, he gave up 6 hits and 2 walks. And had a lot of traffic early in the game. Braves had bases loaded, like I said, but weren't able to really break through with a big hit there. So credit to him, getting the double play, getting strikeouts when he needed to, both of these guys to get out of some jams. But I mean, at the like I said, at the end of the day, they both 6 innings, 1 run. I think that speaks to how good both of these guys are. That again, I don't think either one would say they really had their best stuff, and they were still able to kind of navigate through it and keep each of their teams in the game. Fortunately for the Braves, they were able to get that last at bat big play in the top of the 10th there. And then Adam Duvall, as you mentioned, able to come through with that hit that he very much needed.
Yeah, I want to get to that in just a second and just kind of putting a bow on the Braves against Paul Skenes. Marcell Ozuna scalded a couple of baseballs. They both got turned into double plays. So sometimes, even if you're Paul Skenes with his kind of ability, it's better to be lucky than good, because that was the case. It got him out of some trouble, got some of that traffic off the base paths. And Ozuna, even though he's had such a great season, I'm not about to throw a but. However, it's been a little bit harder for him even to get rewarded by some of the hard hit contact of late. That ball against the White Sox also jumps out. Still hitting the ball hard, still hitting it consistently, not finding quite the same results that he was, but you can't argue with his results all season long. And you touched on as well the 10th inning. A little bit of excitement there as it looked like the Pirates might go ahead as the pitch by Daysbel Hernandez got away, but the play at the plate, the quick replay review that showed that the tag was there in time to erase that run, get the Braves up there with a chance to win it. And, there are some guys that have gone through it this year. I don't know if anybody is a poster child more so for it than Adam Duvall, who struggles against right-handers, are well documented, but he's gotten the job done against lefties. But overall, just to find a good moment, kind of a place to be or an opportunity to just give something for this team and maybe give something for himself to get going again. Great to see him come through with that game-winning hit.
Yeah, it's huge for Adam Duvall. I mean, look, I've talked about it ad nauseum on my podcast. It's the struggles of Adam Duvall, but if Ramon Laureano's healthy, is he in the game? I mean, I think you're at that point, but he's obviously, out a little bit right now. But for Duvall to come up in that spot, great guy, great clubhouse, guy that everybody talks about that he is. So everybody's certainly rooting for him and the great moments that he's provided for Braves fans, but it's been a struggle. So for him to be able to come up with that big hit and give the Braves a win, hopefully that kind of sparks something for him to get him going. Like, he is more than anybody. He has suffered from, slug just not being there this year. He has the widest gap between actual slug and expected slug this season. So there's obviously been a lot of bad luck in there for Adam Duvall. There's also been a lot of bad at bats in there as well, especially here as of late. And it's more noticeable when the rest of the lineup isn't doing what you expect them to do as well. I mean, if Adam Duvall is batting 6th, 7th, 8th in your lineup and he's struggling like this and everybody else is performing to their level, you probably notice it, but you're probably not as upset about it. But it's just where the offense is. So again, hopefully it's a big moment. Came back, had a hit on Sunday as well. Unfortunately, didn't kind of strike out looking in a big situation in that 7th inning. But again, we're looking for any signs to get Adam Duvall going. Again, great guy. Everybody wants to see him succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I brought this up on my show From the Diamond on Sunday as well. I mean, if you have the rest of the lineup clicking, when somebody's struggling, you're not going to notice it as much. I think that extends more so perhaps to Orlando Arcia, who has become a bit of a lightning rod on the offensive side, but it's hard to argue with what he's done in the field for this club this year. But, does that change the Braves' perspective on trying to find upgrades on the infield and perhaps at shortstop with trades? I think it's a fair question to ask at this point. And of course, we'll all find out the answers in about 30 days. But you also brought up Ramon Laureano, who we discussed on the show on Friday. Might he start getting some of these at-bats in lieu of Adam Duvall? And then all of a sudden he's dealing with a back issue with Laureano, so we haven't seen him in quite a few days as well. But we'll see if the Braves can finally get something close to what I would consider a healthy team with the guys that they need to get out there to give Brian Snitker some choices and give the opportunity to maybe give a day of rest here and there for somebody that's really going through it and really struggling the way that Adam Duvall has. But a good thing to see on Saturday, and hopefully there'll be more of that. We talked about the Max Fried-Paul Skenes matchup with 6 innings of 1-run ball from Fried in the 2-1 win. Of course, he didn't factor in that decision. Spencer Schwellenbach, meanwhile, on Sunday, 5 innings, 4 runs, coming on the 2 home runs, 7 strikeouts for him, couple of walks. I mean, again, there's a lot to like about him, but, it's hard to forget that this is a lot of really on-the-job training. And I know I've talked to, a lot of baseball people over the years and managers and executives alike, and there's just kind of that belief that until a young pitcher gets about 30, 35 starts at the big league level, you really don't know what you have just yet. And I think that Spencer Schwellenbach has shown, that there is potential for something special in there, but he's still going to have some days like this where he learns to navigate that lineup, as the case may be, the second and really the third time through.
And he has so many pitches. I mean, you would think he has the ability to be able to do that. I don't think that's necessarily going to be an issue going forward for him. But, something he's talking about, something we talked about on here, is just that ability to, I think it's really just better sequencing and knowing how to locate pitches in certain counts. I know we talked about that for his previous start, just not able to locate where he wanted to in 2-strike counts. But, he has the pitches, he has the arsenal to be able to get through a lineup a couple of times. It's just, again, it's learning. It's on the job. We've discussed it. It's just not a lot of experience at the professional level, not a lot of experience at the college level either. But again, I think that just stands out even more to how good that he has been at times and the stuff that you've seen from him. I really like all the pitches that Spencer Schwellenbach has and the arsenal that he's able to throw. And it's the location. I mean, it's the one thing you look at for young pitchers. Are they able to come up and locate? That's certainly not the problem for Spencer Schwellenbach. Again, he has that deep arsenal and he's able to command it. So again, I think the next step for him is just learning how to sequence those pitches better and to locate them better in certain counts. And I think he's going to be really good for the Braves.
Yeah, and this is, again, just a young pitcher kind of finding his ways. Unfortunately, O'Neal Cruz, who's a young player with a lot of power, really jumped all over one to get that scoring started for the Pirates with his 2-run homer. That was 117 miles an hour off the bat. I mean, as the old joke from, I say, Skip Carey or whoever else goes, that ball's out of every park, including Yellowstone. That was absolutely crushed. Rowdy Tellez, meanwhile, after a walk, was able to tack on, and that I feel like is kind of if you want to really circle one of the mistakes for him, the walk, then the homer just set up the Pirates for a little bit more. And it's an offense that will take all the help it can get, most certainly. Tellez, who had been terrible in the first couple of months, has finally found his footing here in the month of June as well. Atlanta's lineup, meanwhile, though, and unfortunately, this has been a little bit of a story here again as we close out June. Only 6 hits in this one, 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. You touched on that earlier. 7 men left on base and 2 double plays grounded into. I know one of them scored the Braves' first run of the day, but you'd like to be seeing these guys get a little bit more in those situations. Not trying to point the finger at Austin Riley because he's done more than enough here lately. He's been doing his part, but overall, the Braves offense has not been able to find that timely hitting. And if that were able to turn around just a little bit, it would start to give these pitchers, including on this day, a rookie like Spencer Schwellenbach, maybe just a little bit more breathing room, because it feels like the margin for error for the Braves pitching has been pretty thin here over the last couple of months.
Yeah, we've talked about it. If this offense was just league average, I mean, again, something I never thought we'd be asking for coming into the season, but that's the case. I mean, they've been a bottom 10 offense for almost, over 2 months now. If they were just average with the pitching that we've gotten, we'd be right there with the Phillies, I think, in the NL East. So again, I still want to believe they can get there, but we're at the point now. I need to see it over long stretches. Felt like we were kind of getting there. And then you had the series in St. Louis, had a couple of games there. They struggled. The game in Chicago, a tough one. You can't get a run. And then in the last 2 games in this Pittsburgh series. So it's just they're not able to stack it up consistently. And for me, it just comes down, again, as I started off talking about, some of that situational hitting. And I know Orlando Arcia has been struggling, and he contributed some in this game, but the spot in the 7th inning, you just got to put the bat on the ball there and get a run. Just get one run. You don't have to get the big 2-3 run homer every time. Mm-hmm. Put the bat on the ball and try to get a run in when you have those opportunities. And we just haven't seen them be able to do that enough this year.
And it's certainly easier said than done, but with the talent we're talking about here, there's just a higher level of expectation, not only from the outside looking in, but also inside that clubhouse. They expect it to be a lot better than it has been. We'll talk a little bit more about what the weekend was, put a bow on that, and look ahead to the series and the rest of the homestand that's coming up. It's first the Giants, then it will be the Philadelphia Phillies rolling into Truist Park. We'll get to that next as the Braves Postcast continues. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down as it gets closer to first pitch, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their low-price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and has great last-minute deals on all kinds of things, not just sports, but concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. You can save up to 60% off there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets in general with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Just create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for that $20 off in the Game Time app. So download that today. Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, Jake, let's talk just one more moment about what has been going on with this Braves offense. Then I promise you and everyone else will turn the page, at least for today. Atlanta, and this came from Mark Bowman of MLB.com today, already matched its 2023 total for scoring 2 runs or less in a game. That's a stat that I didn't really realize needed to be tracked, but it is one that we do track because we count everything in baseball, and it certainly underscores the underperformance of 2024. In a year ago, 24 times the Braves scored 2 or fewer runs. They've already done that in half the time this year as we reach the halfway point of the season.
Just another mark this year that the Braves offense is making that you don't want to see. And it's crazy because everything we talked about last year, they were breaking an offensive record, and now they're breaking bad offensive records, ones that you don't want to be breaking. And look, offense is down league-wide. We know that. But for this group in particular, even with the injuries and the guys they've lost, I would not have predicted them being, a bottom 10 offense, at least after the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. That's what they've been. Nobody would have seen that coming. And again, if we just got a little bit more offense in some of these games, if you get 3 runs in a lot of these games, it probably leads to a handful more wins.
Yeah, all I heard there was Breaking Bad records. So that's not good. Breaking Bad, the TV show, actually quite good. Very entertaining if we're being honest. But as you look at what the Braves have been doing here, they're trying to figure out a way to get this whole thing turned around. They did grab a series win over the Pirates. I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle here, but just in looking at the way the last couple of games went, clearly there's some offensive questions that need to be answered. Coming up, though, 3 games against the San Francisco Giants, another struggling sub-500 club. It's going to be another one of those series, Jake, that you like to refer to as one where you need to take care of business.
Certainly need to. And look, I'll take the series wins. I don't care if we have to win some of these games 2-1, 3-2. Again, we've talked about it. Maybe it's just a mindset that we need to change, where we were used to this offense being what carried this team and led to wins. But maybe it does just need to be the pitching going forward. And like I said, maybe that's part of what Alex has to figure out as we get towards the deadline and how he wants to build this team. Maybe you just build it around pitching and defense. But either way, if that's the recipe for success to win games, I'm fine. And they have the pitching to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it would be more entertaining and a lot more fun if we could see this offense get back to what we know they're capable of doing and what they've been able to do in the past. And again, hopefully we'll hope once more that it is this series that we see that begin to take place.
Yeah, a lot of hope has been involved in the planning, it seems like, or at least the overall consumption of the Braves season this year. And there is a lot of baseball left to be played, which is not to say that they won't figure some of these things out, and some of it would and could and should improve. AJ Minter, meanwhile, he will be back with Atlanta soon, it looks like. He pitched another rehab assignment game in Gwinnett on Sunday. Daysbel Hernandez has already been optioned out. That would seem to point to the return of AJ Minter. That's not necessarily going to ignite the Braves offense, but Jay, good to get one of their key relievers back in there as the bullpen continues to be a strength. The pitching staff continues to be a strength by and large. And AJ Minter is typically going to be found in the middle of all of those things for the Braves. He's been one of their most valuable relievers for about 5-6 years now.
Yeah, it'd be great to have AJ Minter back. I think it speaks to the work of the bullpen that I don't really know that you've noticed all that much that AJ Minter has been out over the last couple of weeks, because the bullpen has been pretty solid without him. But certainly getting AJ Minter back, getting a healthy AJ Minter back is only going to just help this group be even better, give them another lefty option. I know Bummer, he had a clean inning on Sunday, but he's kind of had some hiccups over the last week or so. So it'll be good, again, just to have another lefty option. I know Minter can get them out from both sides, but that would be great for Brian Snitker and the options that he has down there. So glad to have AJ Minter back. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be good to have him back in there. And look, in this homestand, it's going to be hard not to focus on that Phillies series that's coming up. But, winning the one against the Giants first is going to be key. Phillies have an 8-game lead over the Braves as of Sunday's action. They're also without 2 of their biggest stars, as both Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber landed on the injured list, will not play against the Braves in the upcoming series this next weekend. But that happens after the Braves and Giants conclude their business. It's going to be Reynaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, and Charlie Morton against San Francisco. It'll be Hayden Birdsong, Jordan Hicks, and Logan Webb scheduled to get the ball for San Francisco. Game 1 on Tuesday, we'll see Lopez, who's 6-2 with a 1.70 ERA, against Birdsong with no record and a 5.79 ERA. For Reynaldo Lopez, just continuing to do what he's done would suit the Braves just fine. It would also set them up for what you hope would be a winnable game against a yet unproven young righty.
You would hope so. Again, you never know with this offense, but we pretty much at this point know what we're getting from Reynaldo Lopez, and he's just been fantastic all year long. I mean, you expect 5-6 innings of 2 earned or less. I mean, that's what he's basically giving you every time that he's gone out. So looking forward to seeing Reynaldo get out there. And I love after every time he pitches, he then becomes the new ERA leader in the National League. So hopefully that continues after his next start.
Yeah, and it's just been something that's been one of the most pleasant surprises that you will find, has been what Reynaldo Lopez is doing for the Braves every 6th day. Let's make that part of the plan for him. It seems the Braves are pretty much tied to that. Birdsong, meanwhile, 22-year-old, will be on the mound for the San Francisco Giants, who are trying to figure a lot of things out this year. They signed and acquired a lot of different players who have not really been able to factor in their success. And we'll see, who's able to step up by the time the end of the year comes along, as they were hoping to kind of make a run of things, especially after getting Blake Snell, who's on the shelf, signing Matt Chapman, getting Jorge Soler, a big import from Korea as well, who's also done for the season. It's just kind of been that kind of year, Jake, for the San Francisco Giants. So if I may be so bold as to say the Braves would like to just continue their miseries for 3 more games.
Certainly would love to see that. Again, it's you love to see teams that go for it like the Giants, but this is the dangers of it. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Injuries are a real thing. Jung Ho Liu, they did pick up. I mean, he got off to a good start to the season, but now is out with an injury. But hopefully the Braves can continue that and get some good vibes going on their own side if they've had their own miseries offensively this year.
Well, they'll look to have the good vibes of Reynaldo Lopez going on Tuesday in Game 1 against Hayden Birdsong. It is a 7:21 pitch, 1-3 against the Braves and the Giants. That's going to bring us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast as we close out a weekend series win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Give us those likes and those comments. Share the show with a friend. Help us grow the channel. And subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to be it for this edition of the show. We look forward to catching you again this week. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. Until next time, so long, everyone.